what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Geek-Stew. And today, guys, welcome back to another episode of Conspiracy Theories with Ike. That is right. Hope you guys are doing great out there. I'm doing pretty alright myself. Just been, doing some videos. Recorded with Salsa just a little bit earlier for our Control-C video today. Or a couple days ago, my bad. Because today is Friday. When you're watching this, it is Friday. The beautiful day of Friday. So today, we're talking about another conspiracy theory video. And as you'll probably know from Monday's video and Wednesdays, I postponed the Monday or the 100 subscribers video just a little bit because I wanted to get some more questions. And I may even postpone it more because I may even want to do something with Salsa because I'm going to be seeing him in about a month. But at least for now, make sure you're asking questions. I want to have lots of questions to answer. Even ask some questions of Salsa if you're curious. All of that good stuff. So anyhow, today, guys, we're going to be talking about a pretty simple conspiracy theory. Honestly, I was kind of debating on whether or not I wanted to talk about this, but I just thought to myself, I might have some interesting insight into this. I have a kind of an interesting story of when I was younger that I don't necessarily know if this was real or what this was per se. It may have just been in my imagination, but today we're going to be talking about the absolutely, I would say, very interesting, most of the time faked, but somewhat real in my opinion, the Skinwalkers. So for the most part, this video it's one of those things where Skinwalkers are a very common occurrence now, and I feel like in our popular culture, a lot of people know about them. A lot of people talk about them. There are plenty of TikToks, YouTube videos, and everything else to talk about them. The other day, I literally was watching a TikTok where they were talking about this was like a sound of a baby crying in the forest, but there's no babies usually in forests, out in tracks and everything else. So yeah, it was kind of weird, which we'll talk about in a minute. But so the concept of a skinwalker is pretty general. I feel like a lot of people somewhat know what they are, what they look like, things like that. As to whether or not everybody knows their exact origins is a whole other thing. But the bad thing about that is that there's a lot of different origins and a lot of different thoughts. A lot of people typically believe that the origins of the skinwalker do originate that in the Navajo culture. So keep in mind that I'm just kind of giving you a very brief overview of what skinwalkers are, because I'm not really here to talk about all of the lore per se. I'm more here to sort of talk about my experience with what I think and why I might believe is skinwalkers are real. But also because the concept of skinwalkers is on the conspiracy theory iceberg. Now, there are conspiracies about skinwalkers, whether that be metaphysical, like spiritual, things like that. But there's also rumors that they could be things like science experiments from the government, that they're trying to mutate people and it turned out bad. And there's plenty of other things that could go into that, so if you're curious about those, I would definitely go ahead and look for those online. But today is mostly about sort of the origin of skinwalkers and maybe a small story time in regards to my experience. But anyways, let's get into the origins. So let's talk about what is a skinwalker, what does it look like, what are its powers, and where do these stories come from. So first we're going to talk about what skinwalkers look like. So, mind you, the Navajo culture, as well as many other tribes, mostly agree on one version of what they look like, but there are other interpretations and forms that they have taken that they might look like in other cultures, things like that. But specifically, most of them agree that the skinwalkers look like deformed, animalistic body, marred-faced, and blazing red-orange eyes. The image you see here is probably going to be as close as I could get to that description. I have not found it yet, but I think I did, maybe. But whatever I put here is as close as I could get to that description without it being too obscure. So that's basically what a lot of these cultures agreed that it looked like in its basic base form, right? So that's what it looks like. To go on top of that, how it looks is obviously just one part of how this thing is scary. But I wanted to mention that first because there's arguments as to whether or not this thing is human. Some people think that these are evil witches. that are using special magic and conjurations to be different and to do these things. Some people think that this is a beast of some sort that has these mystical powers, because the thing we're going to talk about next is their powers. So rolling right into that, their powers stray from shapeshifting, mimicking, possession, and they disguise themselves as animals. So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, what does that mean? So as earlier as I mentioned, there was a TikTok I watched where these people were out in the middle of the woods, and they're in their backyard, they're really secluded, and they heard crying coming from the tree line. Now, a lot of people think that, it kind of depends on what area of the world you live in. There might be even different names for these different types of creatures potentially. But specifically, this person said that they believe that there is possible skinwalkers around them, because the skinwalkers will mimic and disguise their voices and the sounds that they make as other creatures, ergo, in this case, a baby, in hopes that you will go to try and see whether or not it is an actual baby, and then be attacked by the skinwalker for whatever purpose, whether that be just malice or food. And so, in addition to that, there's a billion and one stories about skinwalkers, okay? Lots of different stuff. Things about lore, varies in background, sightings, attacks, native, basically different native groups and legends have lots of different power differences, like what they can do, what they are, but pretty much all of them agree that they're no good. Okay, that's going to be the borderline here, is that essentially every single group that has ever talked about skinwalkers in any way, shape, or form has basically said these things are not good news, avoid them at all cost, and even to some extent they've talked about how that they're really, if you come across one of these, like, you should kill it. Like, there was one thing I was reading that was saying something like, if you come across a skinwalker, it's not going to leave you alone until you kill it. So it also kind of talks a little bit about how, skinwalkers play with their prey potentially, or they intentionally want to cause malice or harm to this person, so they're going to stalk it. So there's lots of different interpretations on what their reasoning and purposes are, or whatever the case may be. But again, the borderline, the baseline here is that skinwalkers are bad fucking news. So now that we've kind of gotten the baseline out of the way for what skinwalkers are, it's one of those things where skinwalkers are sort of, the interpretation of skinwalkers is kind of up in the air. Some people think different things about them and everything else, and it's sort of hard because on one hand it's who do you believe? Do you believe any of them? And to me, to an extent, I do believe that skinwalkers are real, because here's the deal. I'm a believer in the supernatural. I think I told a ghost story about when I was younger a while back, and I've had other things that have happened to me in my life that have sort of made me believe in the supernatural to an extent. And I personally believe that skinwalkers, to some extent, I don't even know necessarily if I know the origins of skinwalkers or the true skinwalkers, but I believe to an extent that skinwalkers are real. Okay. I don't necessarily have 100% proof, but in my brain, here's what I tell myself. We know so little about the world around us in a lot of ways that it's hard for me to believe that there isn't at least some aspect of the world that we don't understand. So that aspect that we maybe don't understand could be like that, what people call magic or spiritual or whatever else. And so I don't know. It's hard for me to specifically say why I believe in this, but one thing I do want to talk about is when I was younger. When I was younger, my grandma, she lived out in the middle of nowhere, and me and my brother, we would go visit her, and she would let us go play out in the woods. Now, when you go play out in the woods, she didn't really live near anybody. Right next door was a horse farm or a cow pasture, I can't remember. I remember there being cows and horses. I don't know if they necessarily raised one or the other per se, but I do know that they had both, but they had huge open fields, and they were probably a good 2-3 miles away from us. So when we go play in the woods, we were playing just basically in open woods. It was so deep that eventually got to the point where you would enter state park woods where we were at. And so what would happen is we would go in these woods, and it never really was an issue, but sometimes we'd hear animals and stuff, birds, of course, shit like that. But one day, me and my brother were out there, and I have very vague memories about this, but it's always stuck with me to some extent. But we just remembered we were walking towards a creek, and there was this little creek that ran through a portion of it, and it was just, honestly, it was like a drip. I mean, when I say that, it was just it was such a thin stream, and you could just step right over it. Even when it got really rainy and stuff, you could still jump over it easily. And so when we were about to cross the creek, there was like a set of like a large stones out in the distance, and I swore that I saw a person. And we started hearing some odd noises. It sounded like gibberish being spoken. And me and my brother, upon hearing / seeing this, we stopped, we waited, and it terrified us. We didn't exactly know what was happening or what exactly was occurring, but and it could have been this too, is that we were so young that maybe I'm misremembering part of this. I'm not sure. But point being is that we thought we had heard someone out there, we thought we saw someone out there, and we just booked it back to the house. When we got back to the house, we went inside, told my dad and my stepmom, who were, at the time, we were all staying the night, and my grandma, who wasn't there, had like weapons. And so my dad went outside with a rifle, basically just waiting for someone to come out of the woods because he thought there was somebody out there. And even he recalled hearing something out there, but not exactly seeing anything. So he honestly thought that maybe it was just a deer or maybe some small mid-sized animal that we just caught out of the corner of our eyes or something. But it just seemed weird to me that like it hid behind this rock and it was making these weird noises that sounded like a human speaking gibberish, kind of like, you know, you know. So it kind of, that's what it sounded like. It sounded like someone was like not talking coherently, and to me, like, it kind of makes sense that, you know, skinwalkers can mimic. Skinwalkers can, you know, shapeshift, and they can, you know, disguise themselves. So it's like, I don't know. Do I think it was a skinwalker? Probably not. But it was super strange. But it was just a very weird occurrence that I had experienced at that time. And it's something that I've always thought about over the years. And it's like I've never been able to 100% prove it. This was before I even had a cell phone, mind you. So I was very young, like 11, maybe 12. And so you're talking early 2000s. So it's like, you know, plus like we were in Indiana, and it's like, who's to even say that skinwalkers even exist in Indiana? It could have just been some crackhead that wandered into the woods, or maybe it was someone playing a prank, or who knows? Who knows what it could possibly have been? But regardless, it was very weird, very odd, and something that stuck with me through the years. And, you know, in recent times, I've sort of thought about some of more urban legends and conspiracies and things that I know nowadays, and the skinwalker just kind of always stuck with me in a way for some reason. Not necessarily that I believe it was 100% without a shadow of a doubt a skinwalker, but there's a lot of those key identifying things about a skinwalker that seem to kind of apply to the situation. But in any case, it happened a long time ago. Could have been a skinwalker, could have been nothing. Who knows? I wish I could go back. I wish I could have had a camera. That would have been interesting to have. You know, if I had an iPhone back then, you know, like kids nowadays, they have iPhones, and it's like, man, if I had an iPhone back then, I could have potentially caught a skinwalker on camera. Granted, I probably would have died if I got closer to it, if it was a skinwalker. Historically, those things aren't exactly kind or friendly to people, so keep that in mind. If you ever feel like you're encountering any kind of a weird creature in the woods, it's probably not a good idea to antagonize it. You probably just want to run. But anyhow, that's my story. That's my take and my thoughts on this in a way. I kind of wanted to talk about this specific topic because, honestly, there's not a whole lot to talk about skinwalkers. There's a pretty straightforward definition for what a skinwalker is and its most basic origins. But, of course, there's 101 different interpretations and stories about skinwalkers throughout many different cultures. But there really isn't a whole lot to talk about when it comes to the basic conspiracy of a skinwalker. But I thought it was interesting because I had that story that it was interesting to tell, to share with people out there who maybe have their own experiences, which is why I want to say next, if you have had experiences like this of the supernatural kind, I would love to hear them. You know, write about it in our subscription or comment section. You know, at one point I do want to go through and read your comments for a video. Maybe if I get some really cool stories, maybe I could go through and read those for another future episode, give my thoughts and opinions on it. But for now, I'm going to end it there. I'm going to move into final thoughts, and then we'll close out the video from there. But I hope you guys enjoyed so far. Let's do some final thoughts. So this video might be a little shorter than some other conspiracy theory videos, and it also might be a little bit lacking in the actual conspiracy element. This was on the iceberg, I will say, so maybe I just took this moment to talk about a story that I had. So let me know if you enjoyed hearing this story, if you enjoyed talking and listening to that, and let me know your own personal experiences and stories in the comment section down below. Do you believe that skinwalkers exist? If you do you think that they're evil creatures, or are they people who can just have these powers and abilities? Let me know. But for that, all I can say is, if you guys are still watching, like, subscribe, share, favorite, comment on it. Give us a follow on social media, Twitter and Facebook. It would be really appreciated. I'd love to have some more interactions on Twitter and Facebook. But even beyond that, leave a comment with some questions or some stories. I'd love to be able to answer some questions and read some stories in the future, whatever it might be. Also, if you want to join the Geek-Stew crew, let us know in the comment section down below, because we are looking to continue to grow our product and expand our entity that is Geek-Stew. Like I said, we're looking just for anybody who wants to add anything creative to us. That's what we're looking for. Leave your handle down below in the comments, and we'll reach out to you, or reach out to us yourself on Facebook or Twitter. But I'm going to stop rambling. I'm talking really fast. I had an extra cup of coffee today, so I'm pretty amped. So stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, stay awesome, and we will see you in the next one. See ya.